Welcome. Hope that your week is off to a good start. The 49ers draft week is here. We had our annual press conference with John Lynch. No surprise appearances from Kyle Shanahan this time. No statements, existential ones about whether or not we may be dead or alive at this point next week. It was a little more solemn even than last year. Last year's was fiery, right? Today's press conference was, let's be honest, a whole lot of nothing. John Lynch speaks and affirms what we already knew about the 49ers stance regarding Deebo Samuel. I'll illustrate right now. We'll play some John Lynch from today.
A little perspective that, I'm not going to talk about that much today because I don't think that's productive. I don't want to speak on behalf of Deebo and his team. And I think it's non-productive for us to be talking about things. I've always thought, having been on the other side, and I've shared this with you guys, there's a sanctity to those conversations remaining private, and that's always how we've operated, and we'll continue to do so in this situation. So, as we move forward, I'm sure you have questions. Just understand, please, that just not going to go there because I don't think it's. I always have to ask myself in this job, what's in the best interest of our organization. I don't think it's the best interest of our organization or anyone to be speaking on that. So it's kind of where I'm at on that. But with respect to the draft.
Well, people were frustrated with that answer from John Lynch. That wasn't even an answer. That was actually his opening statement. We call that a filibuster. He knew that the questions were coming. He knew that he needed to speak for about 30 minutes. He spent a good few minutes with an opening statement before questions actually came. Part of that statement preemptively tried to strike down some of the Deebo Samuel questions. They started rolling in anyway. And John Lynch, despite dancing around them, we did get a few nuggets that essentially affirmed what we already knew. Here's one quote, John Lynch on Deebo Samuel. "I can't ever imagine wanting to move on from Deebo. He's just too good of a player." More Lynch on Deebo. "You don't let guys like that walk." Lynch also acknowledged that he's been surprised by Deebo Samuel's behavior, or maybe the behavior of his agent, or both. He's been surprised by the fact that this has gone a bit off the rails, but he said, "But that's life. You've got to work through things, and that's what we plan on doing." So in totality, no surprises from John Lynch. We should have never expected him, and I'm sure some people expected him to. This happens every single year at this press conference. People think that John Lynch or maybe Kyle Shanahan, when he joins them, are going to sit down and divulge all the 49ers state secrets 3 or 4 days before the NFL draft. And people were so naive and so gullible last year that they thought that the fact that Kyle Shanahan joining John Lynch, when he didn't have to join him, it's only John Lynch that has to do this press conference mandated by NFL rules. People thought last year that Kyle Shanahan voluntarily sat down and essentially told reporters that the 49ers were going to pick Mac Jones. As it turns out, Kyle Shanahan was just messing with the people who were gullible enough to believe that, and he made them think they were picking Mac Jones. But of course, Kyle Shanahan, for no reason, would come. Of course, he wouldn't come on to John Lynch's press conference and divulge what the 49ers are doing. And of course, we shouldn't expect John Lynch to sit down and point blank say what the 49ers are going to do with Deebo Samuel, especially since there is so much uncertainty regarding that. I think the 49ers obviously are in a holding pattern, but they remain in King's ransom mode. If there's a way to summarize what the 49ers are right now, it's here. King's ransom mode. We're going to give credit to ESPN's Josina Anderson for the terminology when we talk about King's ransom mode. And it's simple. Unless the 49ers are offered a King's ransom as part of a trade package in return for Deebo Samuel, they're going to hold on to him because Deebo Samuel is that important to this football team. I've talked about this many, many times. Reports that are reputable have indicated this many times over the past several days, and now John Lynch verified it with some of his quotes. The 49ers were over 4 times as efficient when Deebo Samuel was on the field versus when he was off of it last year. He was the second most efficient receiver in football. That's as a pure wideout behind only Cooper Kupp. He had the best advanced metrics of any running back in football. And you're talking about this from the same player, receiver number 2, running back number 1, wide back. I mean, he was a superstar, point blank. Even some of the durability questions regarding Deebo Samuel are a bit overblown, considering the fact that he's only really missed games in one season in 2020 after breaking his foot. But in 2019 and 2021, he's delivered really good seasons, and he's done so by being an absolute monster after the catch. Through every single vantage point, Deebo Samuel is extremely valuable to the 49ers, both as an emotional heartbeat, came out super gremlin to the boom box, and just as a stylistic driver of this team through the yards after the catch and through that style of play. So it's indisputable. Deebo Samuel was, I don't want to say a single-handed carrier of the 49ers to the playoffs and to the NFC Championship game, but he certainly was one of the core players who did carry the 49ers to where they got. He might have turned the season around with that catch and run against Chicago. We know how important he is. The advanced metrics reflect that. So if the 49ers want to make sure that they enter week one with a chance to be a better football team in 2022 than they were in 2021, it's going to be hard to justify not having Deebo Samuel on the team. So that means that the only way that the 49ers can justify trading a player who's under contract with them for an affordable cost for 2022 is if they get a king's ransom in return. And I think the 49ers are very obviously still on that stance. Now, reports have come out the Jets might be thinking about trading one of their first rounders. They have 4 and 10. We also can compare to the Tyreek Hill trade from the Chiefs to the Dolphins, where the Dolphins were able to pick up 5, or the Chiefs were able to pick up 5 picks from the Dolphins. You talk about king's ransoms. You talk about precedent already set this offseason. And sure, I think it's possible that Deebo Samuel is able to command a trade return big enough for the 49ers to consider trading him. But it still remains unlikely. And I think that John Lynch hinted at that as much as was possible, given the fact that he didn't want to say anything. But after a while, some stuff does slip. And I mean, it's even beneficial for the 49ers to let it slip, to go out there and say, hey, we really value this guy. I can't ever imagine wanting to move on from Deebo. He's just too good of a player. If you emphasize that kind of stuff, well, then even if you do trade him, the price is probably just going to increase, because in the leverage of trade negotiations here, the 49ers own essentially 100% of it. Why? Because at this point, it doesn't seem to me that they're desperate to trade Deebo Samuel. But if somebody offers something tantalizing enough, they'll think about it. But if you had a gun to your back that said you have to trade this guy, of course the price is going to be much lower. But if he's under contract and he's a superstar and you feel you don't have to trade him because you feel that the collective bargaining agreement, the CBA, is on your side, that it could punish this guy for holding out if he does indeed stretch this out a few months, if you believe that the ball is in your court as far as leverage power in this negotiation situation, well, then the ball's in your court as far as leverage power in a potential trade situation. We shouldn't be talking about the price that the Jets or a team like the Eagles might be willing to pay for Deebo Samuel. We should be talking about the price that the 49ers would entertain. And the 49ers entertaining a specific price is what's driving all of this. And I think that's all we can really glean from what John Lynch said today. It was a whole lot of nothing, but with a lot of something interspersed in between. And I talked about Kyle Shanahan in this press conference last year. And that's kind of funny. In fact, I should open that up here on my Twitter. And I will in just a second. First, we're going to put up the Deebo Samuel article right here. Wrote this one for The Athletic. We're going to copy and paste this into the chat section. So go ahead and check this one out. And also, we're going to talk about Alex Mack and that other stuff in a bit. But first, I want to get to the background of this press conference, because I tweeted this before it started. Have to remember, we got to put stuff into context. I feel a lot of times people forget the context. NFL general managers are required to hold the pre-draft press conference every single season. For the 49ers, it almost always comes on the Monday before the NFL draft. So far throughout the John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan era, it's come on the Monday every single time. Just remember that last year at this very same pre-draft press conference, Kyle Shanahan showed up. He didn't have to. This is only supposed to be Lynch. And Kyle Shanahan, in the midst of all the Mac Jones rumors, right, with the 49ers, getting set to pick at number 3, Kyle Shanahan was asked about Jimmy Garoppolo's spot on the 49ers roster moving forward. And somebody asked him, can you guarantee that Jimmy Garoppolo will be on the roster after the NFL draft? And Kyle Shanahan said, and I quote, I can't guarantee that anybody in the world will be alive on Sunday, so I can't guarantee who will be on our roster on Sunday. That was Kyle Shanahan's way of addressing what had become a really repetitive question to him. Of course, he wasn't going to divulge anything crazy, but of course, people took it and ran with that quote like chickens with their heads cut off. Immediately, oh, Jimmy Garoppolo's gone. Oh, Jimmy Garoppolo won't be on this team. It's like, guys, think. Kyle Shanahan is not going to divulge a slam dunk one way or the other 4 days ahead of the most secretive draft that the 49ers have ever conducted. So he's obviously being facetious. And look who was right. Jimmy Garoppolo obviously ended up on the roster and started for the 49ers all the way to the NFC Championship game in the 2021 season. So we can't read too far into these things, and we have to appropriately read the tea leaves. And when we appropriately read the tea leaves, we see how the 49ers feel. That doesn't mean that they won't trade Deebo Samuel. That doesn't mean that they're eager to trade Deebo Samuel. It simply means what it is. It is what it is in this situation. The 49ers recognize that Deebo is an extremely valuable player, but they also acknowledge they were surprised by Deebo's behavior, which has taken a dramatic toll, I think, on the 49ers fan base at the very least. And hey, it's still April, but if this is something that continues into September and October, well, at some point, the drama is going to outweigh the talent, right? If it starts to affect the 49ers team chemistry, I just don't think that we're quite at that point yet. Again, it's still April. These workouts are still voluntary. And the 49ers do have a lot of bargaining power as far as the CBA goes. Because, guys, if this extends into training camp and Deebo Samuel's not showing up when he's required to, 49ers have to fine him $40,000 per day, according to the new CBA. You can't forgive those fines. And if Deebo Samuel doesn't show up, he doesn't get an accrued year toward free agency. He wants to be an unrestricted free agent. The team holds the power in this situation. The question is, will Deebo Samuel, using the recourses at his disposal, and maybe we should say Tory Dandy, his agent, using recourses at his disposal, goad the 49ers into doing something different? I still think at the end of the day, this is a money play. That's what the evidence seems to be pointing toward all along. When we cut through all that confusion about usage, about not wanting to live in California, but then he's clubbing in California the very next day, I think at the end of the day, this is about money and maybe more specifically guarantees. And maybe philosophically, the 49ers and Deebo Samuel still aren't on the same page, but I think it's fair to say that philosophically, they can still get on that same page. It's just April. Fred Warner talked today. Fred Warner executed a contract extension, a record contract extension for the linebacker position with the 49ers last year, but he didn't get it done until right before training camp. So we still have a few months before that with Deebo Samuel. And in the case of George Kittle, in the case of Fred Warner, it's taken some time. Now, what Deebo has done with this trade request is that he's created a soft deadline. He's created an inflection point because the 49ers don't have a first-round draft pick. Obviously, to get back in the first round, they can trade Deebo Samuel. So Tory Dandy said, well, with the draft coming up, maybe we can kind of put the pedal to the metal here. We could kind of push the 49ers up against it, and we can force a decision for them. But it's still likely that the 49ers' decision will be not to budge, to maintain the status quo, unless they're blown away, unless they get the King's ransom. So that's the position that the 49ers are in right now. They're in King's ransom mode. They're looking for that. Otherwise, I don't think they're going to be budged off their current spot with Deebo Samuel. I pointed out this is typically the least informative presser of the year. And hey, as far as the Deebo Samuel situation went, you could glean some nuggets of information for it. They essentially corroborated what we already knew. But we did get this tea leaf kind of situation, and it was about Alex Mack. It sounds as if Alex Mack is trending toward retirement. Here he is, walking off the field with Mike McGlinchey, who spoke today. But is this another Joe Staley situation? That's the question that I ask in this article on The Athletic that I'm going to pop open, make a little bit bigger for you here. Copy and paste it into the chat section. Why don't you go and check it out right now? Be sure to subscribe to The Athletic. And while you're at it, I know you guys are all watching right now. Hit the subscribe button on this channel because we're coming out with a lot of 49ers content. As you can tell, I'm still in my work blazer right now. Got home from the facility. First thing I do after I finish my article is record the video. And the question now is, Alex Mack, is this a Joe Staley situation again? Because John Lynch said this: we've been in discussions with Alex, communicating with him. And I think I would say, common theme here today, I'm not going to speak for Alex on that. I think at the appropriate time, Alex will comment on that. That, I think, is the telling quote. At the appropriate time, Alex will comment on that. You know, if Alex Mack were returning, for sure, there would be no at the appropriate time. Now, Lynch later on said there's no finality in Mack's decision, which again implied that even though there's not finality, the decision is to retire. Mack's going to be 37 this season. He's 36 right now. But, you know, even despite John Lynch not wanting to leave the door open for Alex Mack to return, you couldn't help but think of the situation 2 seasons ago. And we'll revisit this quote right now. Same press conference, 2020. 49ers were doing that one over Zoom, not in person like we were today at Levi's Stadium. And somebody asked John Lynch about Joe Staley. And John Lynch said he's doing his typical routine down with his family in San Diego working out. We're encouraged. We've heard nothing that would lead us to believe that Joe is not going to play. So we're encouraged with that. We'll see where that goes. That is something with each and every player, particularly as they get older. You give them that time that they need. But we are encouraged that Joe will be a part of us moving forward. 5 days after that, Joe Staley retired. And you can't convince anybody that 49ers didn't know. In fact, right after Joe Staley retired, 49ers completed a trade for Trent Williams. So that worked out for them. So my question here is, are they pulling a Joe Staley situation here? Or is John Lynch just trying to use some diversion tactics again like he did 2 years ago ahead of the 49ers possibly signing J.C. Tretter, former Browns center, number 2 in pass blocking grade from PFF each of the past 3 seasons? It's definitely possible. And that's what I address in this article. You either go Tretter or you go Brunskill at center and you draft somebody. Tyler Linderbaum from Iowa, probably a first rounder, but you got Cam Jurgens from Nebraska. That's who Matt Barrows and I just picked in the mock draft for the Athletic that's going to be coming out tomorrow, so you could take that one out. You have Dylan Parham from Memphis, Cole Strange from Chattanooga, Luke Fortner from Kentucky. There certainly is a lot of center talent in this draft, and as you've heard from various national reporters, it seems that more teams are interested in trading down than trading up, which I think behooves the 49ers pick situation really well. They have 9 picks coming up, none of them in the first round. Before a draft that's more middle and bottom heavy, I guess that's the way you'd want to be, right? And that, you know, in and of itself should also be another tell regarding the Deebo Samuel situation. If there are so many teams desperately trying to draft back out of the top 10, why would the 49ers be so desperate to enter the top 10? Right? So the appeal of getting multiple first rounders for Deebo Samuel might not be as high this year as it is in other seasons. All right, on to our next point. I think we have a couple more pieces of news that I diligently chronicled today, so we'll go through them. The 49ers, they picked up Nick Bosa's 5th-year option. Now, this is essentially a formality. This is something that the 49ers were obviously going to do. Bosa's still under his original rookie contract in the 4th year for 2022, just like Deebo Samuel. The difference between Bosa and Samuel is that Bosa was a first-round pick, while Samuel was a second-round pick. So, by rule in the CBA, first-round picks have a 5th year of team control if the team chooses to exercise that year of control. The 49ers can obviously slap the franchise tag on Deebo Samuel for the 2023 season. That'd be slightly different than the 5th-year option. And the 5th-year option for Nick Bosa, the 49ers just executed right now. It's fully guaranteed. So they're planning on paying Nick Bosa in that 2023 season. And it's worth about $17 million, somewhere between $17 and $18 million. Still an estimate, but Nick Bosa with his Pro Bowl escalators has made that worth nearly $18 million. The 49ers can still negotiate a long-term deal. They're in touch with Nick Bosa's representative. So he may not even play and probably won't even play for that 5th-year option price tag in 2023, but the 49ers did exercise it today. Meanwhile, linebacker Azeez Al-Shire has signed his restricted free agent tender. He is the last restricted free agent who the 49ers had offered a contract to sign, but now they're all signed. Daniel Brunskill and Azeez Al-Shire signed, and all the exclusive rights free agents who had even less of an opportunity to go elsewhere, headlined by Jawan Jennings, have also inked their deals. The 49ers are locked and loaded there. Al-Shire is set to make about $3.9 million on this RFA tender in the 2022 season. So that's the news from today. John Lynch speaks and affirms what we already knew about the 49ers stance on Deebo Samuel. I can't ever imagine wanting to move on from Deebo. He's just too good of a player. Hell, we could play it again for those of you that just joined us. Here we go.
And, a little perspective that, I'm not going to talk about that much today because I don't think that's productive. I don't want to speak on behalf of Deebo and his team. And I think it's non-productive for us to be talking about things. I've always thought, having been on the other side, and I've shared this with you guys, there's a sanctity to those conversations remaining private, and that's always how we've operated, and we'll continue to do so in this situation. So, as you guys, as we move forward, I'm sure you have questions. Just understand, please, that just not going to go there, because I don't think it's. I always have to ask myself in this job, what's in the best interest of our organization. I don't think it's the best interest of our organization or anyone to be speaking on that. So it's kind of where I'm at on that. But with respect to the draft.
All right, so that was John Lynch from today. Just wanted to replay that for those of you just joining. And those of you just joining, make sure you subscribe to the channel. I'm going to answer a few questions here. Is J.C. Tretter hurt? How expensive is he? Would it be better to go get Cam Jurgens? I honestly think it'd be best to do both if Alex Mack retires. Even if Mack stayed, I was an advocate of the apprenticeship. The apprenticeship being you draft the rookie and let him learn under a wealth of knowledge like Alex Mack. So J.C. Tretter, he could just replace Alex Mack as the veteran teacher, right? And he could teach the apprentice under him. So I think you need to use draft capital on the offensive line because the 49ers need to make that position group better. And hey, maybe J.C. Tretter is going to be the guy that can anchor it for the 49ers there in the middle. Tretter has had knee and ankle issues, but he's managed to play through them. He doesn't practice that much. At least he hasn't for the Cleveland Browns of the past 5 seasons. But let's emphasize that Tretter did not miss a single game over those 5 seasons. So this guy, he's durable, just like Alex Mack. He's a stud, PFF, number 2 overall grade in pass blocking in each of the past 3 seasons. And on top of that, once Kevin Stefanski took over with an outside zone system that's similar to Kyle Shanahan's 2 seasons ago, Tretter's run blocking grade went up into the top 8. So the guy's a stud. He's younger than Mack. He's available. Yes, you worry about the knee and the ankle, but again, he hasn't missed a game in 5 seasons. So I think you want to go dual track here because it's important to have a veteran center. You don't want to toss a inexperienced player in there with Trey Lance in his first year at quarterback. And you also want to plan for the future. So why don't you do both? Why don't you draft somebody and sign somebody if you're the 49ers? That's what I would say. All right, guys, let's toss in some more questions. If the 49ers trade Deebo to the Jets at the 10th pick, would they trade down or pick a wide receiver at number 10? I'm not sure. They could also, go receiver later on. If they feel they could make the team better at number 10 by drafting, I don't know, going offense. No, probably not offense. Well, yeah, maybe even offensive line or you guys are going to cringe. Edge rusher, defensive back. There's so many extrapolations and possibilities right now. We can go crazy with this forever, but I don't think the 49ers will necessarily try to run like a Kinlaw-Buckner swap if they did trade Deebo Samuel. Maybe you like a receiver a lot in the 2nd or 3rd round. Maybe you like David Bell out of Purdue, and you don't try to fully replicate Deebo Samuel's production, but you try to make up and pick up the slack elsewhere. It's all possible for the 49ers. That's why when I did my videos, and you could subscribe to all of the channel right now and watch the old videos, when I talk about what would the 49ers do if they did trade Deebo Samuel in the draft, I give you options for 1st-round receivers to do the simple Kinlaw-Buckner swap, right? Just All right, trade the guy away, get a first-round pick his replacement, or they can get a step more complicated, and they could use one of their 9 other draft picks on the replacement for receiver, and they could work to strengthen another position because it's a team sport. So you're not just trying to plug and play with one position. If you're going to trade Deebo Samuel, if you're going to get that King's ransom, you would be set on trying to make the whole roster better if you're the 49ers. All right, questions. Let's take it up. Let's take them up. Let's go. David, if we keep Deebo, do we go get a big-time back like Bryce Hall or Kenneth Walker? Sorry, I can't really see my screen. It's a little bit far away, so I'm squinting as I look over there at it. I have a different setup, as you can tell today, than I've had the last few days here in Redwood City. I think the 49ers won't get a big-time back. I still see them as a team that goes 3rd round or lower for the running back position. You know, maybe they've already kind of tapped out on Trey Sermon. I don't know. I would think they would like to see Trey Sermon paired with Trey Lance before they make any definitive decisions there. To me, the 49ers are absolutely going to draft a running back. To me, they're absolutely going to stock up on depth in the backfield just for depth reasons because those guys get hurt so much. And I think they can find a quality body a little bit later on. So when you talk about big time, I don't see them headlining this draft with a running back. No, to answer your question. Lombardi, pizza or burger? That's a good question. Burrito is the answer. Going with a burrito tonight. I've been out of the state here for about a week. Whenever you're out of California for a while, you got to go with the burrito to go back. But In-N-Out Burger for the burger, my own grill for the pizza. I'm sure you guys have seen online. I grill pizza, a Neapolitan pizza, get it up to 700 or 800 degrees. It's really good. I grill burgers too, but boy, if you want to be gourmet, you go pizza, you go prosciutto, you go some goat cheese. You could even sprinkle a little bit of honey on it. But tonight it's neither. Tonight it's neither pizza nor burger. Tonight we're going burrito, and it's going to be really, really good. Will the Niners draft a QB? God, I hope not, because Twitter would melt down if they did. No, I mean, maybe late they like somebody, but no, you got Sudfeld. You're paying him some guaranteed money this year. What, $2 million guaranteed for Nate Sudfeld? You have Trey Lance on the roster. Maybe you bring in. I mean, maybe you draft somebody really low to be a practice squad project because they're paying Nate Sudfeld like a backup. But assuming Jimmy Garoppolo's gone, I don't know if you use capital that's all too valuable on the quarterback position. But what do I know? The draft can always surprise us. Hello, David. What can the 49ers get for Deebo? And do you see Deebo out of San Francisco? I think they could get quite a bit for Deebo Samuel. I think the New York Jets are probably willing to pay quite a bit. The question is it enough to satisfy the 49ers? And I think they really want a Tyreek Hill-like ransom for Deebo Samuel. Are the Jets willing to pay that? They weren't for Tyreek Hill. Are they willing to pay for Deebo since the staff is familiar? We'll see. But again, it's only worth it for the 49ers if it's a lot. And I mean a lot because of how much Deebo Samuel is worth to them on the field. See 49ers getting more than the 10th pick for Deebo. Known quantity going to familiar offense versus a scratch-off lotto draft picks. Yes, I mean, then that's why he's got trade value, right? If the Jets and that familiarity on the coaching staff really wants to go out there and get somebody that they know, then Deebo Samuel will have some value. The question is how much value? Because, again, we can quantify this. And when we quantify it, Deebo Samuel made the 49ers, or I don't want to say he made the 49ers 4 times as efficient. They were over 4 times as efficient when he was on the field versus when he was off of it last year. All right, everybody, thank you so much. It's been good. We've talked Deebo Samuel. We've talked Alex Mack. We've talked 49ers in general. Everybody, please do subscribe to the channel. It's right down there at the bottom. You can click that subscribe button as well. I'll be on with some more videos, maybe even another one tonight. We'll see. First, I got to go for a swim, but I did want to cover what John Lynch talked about today at the pre-draft presser, one of the least informative events of the year, but we did get a little bit of information out of it. So subscribe to the channel. Talk soon because it's about to get fun in 49ers land. Those of you who are, cringing right now or a little upset that stuff's not moving fast enough, well, sorry, that's just how this offseason is playing out for the 49ers. And it's only April. There's still a long way to go. So view it holistically. view that roster construction with some patience, and you'll see the Tetris pieces coming together. All right, everybody take care, subscribe, and have a good Monday night.